Hi, welcome to the New York Parrot Literary Corner. I am Dustin Pickering, your host. You're hearing my voice and not seeing my face. I am the faceless man today, for now. Today we have Laurence Foshee, is a poet and flash prose writer living in his hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma, with work in various outlets such as Apple in the Dark, The Drabble, Dragon Poet Review, Emerge Writers Colony Magazine, The Tulsa Review, and he also appears alongside notable Oklahoman writers such as Joy Harjo, who is our U.S. Poet Laureate, Hannibal B. Johnson, and Kurash Ali Lasagna, and Release Me
Quraish. Sorry.
Fresh. Thank you, thank you. Spirits of Greenwood Speak, a collection honoring the legacy of Black Wall Street and the victims of its destruction during the night of the Tulsa Race Massacre on May 31st of 1921. So thanks for joining us today. Laurence, how are you? And I hope your day is going great.
Good. I'm off work at the hospital. I work at a patient transport at St. John's.
Awesome. That's a good job, and it's wonderful. You're doing great work. For the people out there. So
yeah, thanks.
We're here to talk a little bit about literature and take a break from the classic work grind. And
cool.
I'm curious. What are your writing habits like exactly? How do you go about with your writing?
It used to be a lot easier pre-COVID, I'm not gonna lie, but mainly I just kind of, when it hits me, I just gotta like stop and just kind of flesh something out. I guess I'm pretty young. I'm 30. I don't really have like a set time every week to write like I should. I do kind of maybe on my days off, like set a little bit of time one day a week to like edit mostly, and then other times to read, usually after my shifts. But I've been in a little bit of a writing stall the last few months, but that's all right. I mean, it happens.
It happens, yeah. It happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
I think the muse travels around and she goes here and there and thither and thither. It's like you don't know where she's at. She may be with you today, tomorrow with me. It just kind of happens. So as an emerging writer and poet, what are your plans to make your work more visible?
Well, see, I thought about doing a low residency MFA while I was working, but then I was gonna aim like really high, but maybe I should just kind of taper my expectations a bit. But I've got a few decent regional journals that I'm really proud of being in, and the community I've been involved with through that. So I'm just kind of taking my time with it. It's not really like it's important to me, but I'm comfortable where I'm at for now. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to rush things, I guess. But
that's good. Yeah, let it flow out, and then gradually you'll start seeing results as you improve and continue.
Yeah, for sure.
So you don't have any publications you're aiming for to get your work recognized in?
Well, I mean, I have a few that are still pending lately. I haven't been submitting as much lately too. It's been another weird time for me. But because I was back in school trying to do pre-med stuff. It's weird as a poet, but
maybe not. You have William Carlos Williams was a physician. So.
Yeah, for sure. I'm probably not going to be a physician, unfortunately. I kind of tanked my organic chemistry, but it happens. But I submitted to a few higher tier journals that I'm actually really fond of, like Tulsa's Nimrod literary magazine, international journal. Oh, I love that. I mean, I love them for the quality and the caliber of poets, especially. I mean, I love their prose too, but I'm not prose as a modality isn't quite something I'm super comfortable in just yet. But well, anything beyond flash, I should say. But I love their poets, and they have wonderful workshops every year. And they got kind of some hiccups because of COVID, but I mean, I had workshops with Patricia Smith. I had workshops with Jericho Brown, who won the Pulitzer. He won it the other year. Yeah.
Yes.
I took a really solid kind of experimental poetry workshop with him. It was fun, but and that was through Nimrod in my hometown. I mean, it was just great.
Right.
But and yeah, I got an. I hadn't gotten it. I've submitted an Imran again. I've been knocked out of the running for that for a few times, but and then they also have the Tulsa Artist Fellowship. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's
Mm-mm.
it's it got a lot more attention because of Joy Harjo, who was a
Okay.
Tulsa Artist Fellow.
Mm.
But it's a 2-year fellowship that is, I think they pay it's good fellowship, I think. I mean, it pays 20K plus your rent per annum, and then you have to write high quality work that strongly engages with this, the regional and state community. um
Hmm.
I mean, Joy Harjo has been in it since, I want to say, about the time of her US laureateship. But another poet that I was really fond of, who came into Tulsa, I think out of New Orleans or Louisiana at any rate. It was Clemence Hurd. He did he's working on a what you call it? He's working on a manuscript that I think it won the Anhinga Prize. I can't quite remember, but
Hmm.
it's called Tragic City, which is kind of a reference to the old saying that Black Wall Street was the Magic City. That's where Magic City books and stuff comes from. But
Okay. Yeah, I did mention. I've seen you post about that on Facebook, and
yeah, yeah,
I do want to talk a little bit about that and a little bit more in detail later about the various hangouts and places for
yeah,
bookworms.
yeah, for sure. I Go ahead.
Definitely interested. So your books, from what I've read, you have some very complex arrangements and some
Yeah,
complex forms.
I need to kind of scales pack some things, and I'm still just fleshing stuff out. I don't know. It's all right.
I'm just curious, like maybe you could give us a little bit of an insight onto some of these structures and where your mind is going with them.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad this is where we're going, because
Right.
I'm a huge geek for structure. I think we've talked
Hmm.
about this before on Facebook briefly, but
Hmm.
when I was quite a bit younger, maybe a little too young, I had a really strong passion for James Joyce and
Hmm.
Ulysses. I gravitated to Ulysses, and Tulsa University of Tulsa is very heavily in its literature department, very modernist invested. So James Joyce is a very polarizing figure in Tulsa and in the Tulsa academics. But and which is kind of funny because the New York school is there's a lot of the New York school comes out of TU area. But anyway, um, what's so fascinated me about that book when I was, a much younger, well, a young man, was it's schemata, it's structure. The Lenati and Gilbert schemata, like how it was like this multi-layered puzzle of like sciences and colors and parts of the body and structure, and it
Hmm.
just blew my mind. I was like,
Right.
I had never heard of a novel being written that way. And I was like, I kind of like this concept. I want to play with this. And I never really, I had an idea for a novel, but I never fleshed it out.
Hmm.
It's on the back burner now, and that's fine. But and then I started playing with, like, forms in poetry like that, and it started to kind of really, flesh itself out much easier. Like, I
Hmm.
think that collection I showed you, Trionfini, it's kind of a riff on Petrarch's Triumphs, E Trionfi.
Hmm.
Um, but it was honestly kind of just a grab bag, like, of just stuff I couldn't fit into my sonneteering. But it started to really mesh together when I started putting these kind of bizarre puzzle type constraints to it. You know what I mean? Like, especially the acrostic and abecedarian type
Right.
tomfoolery. But like it started to make a lot more sense the further I went along with it, even though it was in its earliest stages just kind of like, I don't know, like just a side project of like greatest hits, I guess you could say. That's not what I mean, but you get
Yeah,
the
it's sort of
idea.
like it's your best and greatest hits.
Yeah, because I had plenty of other poems earlier. I was just, I mean, and there's some stuff in there I don't quite like just yet. I'm still working it out, but I had plenty of other earlier poems. I just didn't care for at all. I mean, for
Hmm.
probably, I mean, I was a late start to poetry, probably 22, maybe, yeah, 22. But it took about maybe 4 years of consistently writing poetry before I was like, I think I found my niche. I'm getting a little more comfortable with it. And then and then very shortly later, I got a few acceptances. So that kind of confirmed what I thought was comfortable enough for a manuscript, if that makes sense to you.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get a little confirmation from other people out in the community, and they
yeah,
say, hey, this is good stuff. You know, then
yeah,
you
yeah.
want to
It
put it in a
helps. It
book.
helps a lot. Yeah, yeah.
So do you feel like you've grown between Triaphene and the Dry Gulch sonnets?
Yeah, that it's kind of funny. The Dry Gulch Sonnets, I actually started earlier, a little earlier, but I've been on it a lot longer, and I've polished it off and on a lot more. So, like, they're kind of like two simultaneous projects, but Triaphene, I feel is closer to completion. The Dry Gulch Sonnets could probably, I mean, easily take several more years, which is a little odd for my age, I guess, but because I've been on that since about 2016, about 5 years, which for, what is that? I don't know, 50 or 60 sonnets. So it's a little slow, but I mean that's okay. I mean I'm fine with what I'm doing. But yeah, I feel like I'm better about what's the word I'm looking for? Cutting my losses, I guess. I don't know how to,
Mhm.
but I still feel like the sonnets, even though I started them quite a bit younger, I was 25. They've got more potential. I feel like because I haven't quite had that same like you know writerly boost with my sonneteering as I have with my kind of my prose poetry and what have you.
Mhm.
But honestly, I think if I just kind of get back into studying the forms and the laws of the line, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
And I've audited a little bit of grad school stuff with the university out of Oklahoma City. It's a wonderful. They have it's a Red Earth MFA program, but they have audit like really affordable auditing for non-graduate students because I was out of school for a long time, and I met some solid. I met one of my favorite state poet laureates there, Dr. Benjamin Myers. He's a big champion for formalism, new formalism, and he had a wonderful uh, the art of the line class. It was like
Mhm.
it was kind of a 2 week seminar condensed down in like a couple of hours. Actually, it was kind of mind blowing. But
I
um,
love talented people that can do things like that.
yeah, he's very brilliant. He was. I think he's fairly young to have so much of his greatest achievements so young. Like I think he's in his mid 40s, and he was state poet laureate like in his 30s. I think I was like,
Mhm.
what? It's kind of blew my mind. I'm 30, and I'm
Wow.
still kind of just figuring stuff out.
Right.
Some people they're just kind of they just get to where they want to be pretty quick. But
Yeah, some people are a little early bud, some are a little late
yeah,
bloomers.
yeah, yeah.
I didn't
But
even
with
get started
poetry,
publishing until my late 30s. I mean,
yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's great.
mhm.
But yeah, I think poetry it can be a little different. I mean, maybe a little earlier than prose writing, but
Mhm.
I mean, it's all good. I mean, everybody's doing the best they can, and if you're passionate about it, I mean, that's you
Mhm.
know,
Absolutely.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what is it you love most about poetry?
Well, it's kind of funny. When I first started reading poetry, I was a senior in college, biochemistry dropout,
Mhm.
and I felt so lost, and like I came across this. I think it was an E.M. Forrester biography of William Butler Yeats. I'm pretty sure. Um, and it just leveled me, and I was like, man, I want to write poetry. I'm not going to be able to write like Yeats. I know that
Right.
now, but like I just found his life so fascinating, and something about it that resonated with me. Like just constantly growing and finding new trajectories as an artist. And I mean, I had been writing like kind of like sci-fi type stuff in my late teens, early 20s. It was, eh. But yeah, William Butler Yeats was my first major influence, and it wasn't through necessarily reading all of his work, because I started with a lot of his early work. Like I was kind of following this biography while I was reading, like the really early stuff, like The Rose, Wind Among the Reeds,
Mhm.
maybe The Green Helmet and other poems. But when I got a little older, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to read poetry. I want to get good at poetry. I mean, and from there, this sort of kind of late bloomer, kind of fill in the blanks, self-teaching of poetry. I branched out to other modernists. I branched out to other new formalists, other Irish writers. I mean, maybe some of the confessionals, some of the predecessors.
Hmm.
But I just, I mean, I for my age, I got a fair amount of poetry, probably like about 300 books of poetry. It's not too bad.
You're
But
close to me. You're close to my collection, meeting
yeah,
my ultimate
I'm sure you got me beat. I'm
number.
sure you got me beat. But yeah. But yeah,
Great though. It's a beautiful art form. It's a very neglected art form
it's a
generally,
very
but
neglected art form.
yeah,
Yes.
it's wonderful. It has so much compelling abilities
Yeah.
that a lot of other forms don't necessarily have. I mean,
Yes,
it's
I agree. I agree.
wonderful. Yeah.
I agree fully with
So
that.
what are your plans now for formal education, and how do you think those plans will help move your literary path forward?
Well, so I'm currently a Northeastern State University student, in an undergraduate student, which I'm 30. It's a little, I'm a little behind, but it's okay. I was out of school a long time, had to pay off some debts, and I got everything.
Hmm.
But basically, I'm kind of just passing out the rest of an undergraduate degree, and depending on how things go with a few of the professors in the English department, I'm gonna try to. I think this is what I will do. I mean, it's a little tentative, but once I finish this degree, I'm going to try to pan out a few more English undergraduate courses, like British Lit, American Lit, and the stuff you need to apply to graduate programs.
Hmm.
My GPA wasn't so great, but I've had some really solid PhD friends that just strongly encourage me to just at least try to go after grad school.
Hmm.
And if I don't get in, it's fine. I can make it some other way. But I just I love to write and I love to talk about writing. But honestly, I mean, I'm the age I am. I'm working these, like, I mean, they're fine jobs, but they don't pay very well. I hate to say
Right.
it, but
Hmm.
I just don't want to struggle my whole life. I'd like to have a little bit of a crutch to lean on with my intellectual strength, if that's not too arrogant to say.
No, no, I feel the same way
Yeah,
myself. It's
yeah, yeah.
tedious. It's very difficult, and it's a struggle. It really is.
It's just
Foot in the
it's a
door.
struggle. It's a slow struggle, but I think it's worth it. I mean, I don't know necessarily if I'm quite suited for the PhD route, but maybe just an MA or an MFA, and just kind of teaching a bit here and there, and just getting myself fleshed out there. I think I could. I think I'd do quite all right in that regard. But
Right.
time will tell, obviously. But
Right. And I think even if your grades or your GPA is not exactly up to standards for them, that doesn't necessarily mean you're deadbeat dumb or anything.
no, no.
I
I mean,
struggle with my
I get it.
GPA. Yeah,
I know I'm not. I know who I am. I know what I'm
right.
capable of. I just had some really rough goes with personal issues. I'm sure we've
Hmm.
talked about this. I mean,
Right. I did too, but we were on like the same page here. I think on
yeah,
the
yeah.
struggles that it's definitely not easy to go through those kinds of things. And
It's not.
uh,
You're absolutely right.
right. So if you want, you can share a poem with us right now.
Yeah, for sure. Would you prefer something out of the sonnets or the? I mean, I have some older stuff, but I don't want to read that. Some of the sonnets or some of the kind of the Trionfini thing.
I just take your pick,
Okay, cool. I'll just kind
whatever
of.
suits your taste right now.
Okay. I think I'll. Hope this doesn't seem too snotty. I have a my first published piece. It was called Yellow. I don't remember. You probably don't remember that one,
Mm-mm.
but I haven't memorized. I used to do it at bars, which is that's kind of a funny little trick. But you know, I that was another thing. One of my first writing mentors, Mark McDonald. We might have talked about him, but he was very strong about trying to memorize at least some of your work to kind of get a feel for it
Hmm.
in the voice and in the mind and all that. And it made a lot of sense to me at that moment in my life. So yeah, I think I'll recite this piece called Yellow. That was it was my first published piece out of anything in Dragon
Hmm.
Poet Review out of Oklahoma City in 2018.
Okay.
Anyway, it was about it's just kind of a kind of just a flash prose moment about me working at a Greyhound bus station, which is,
Okay.
just kind of my life in my 20s. Anyway, this is just make sure I get the right one. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is yellow. I greet the ex-convict passengers, most of whom are female. That's Oklahoma for you, and load their belongings, TV boxes and pasta boxes, and one. Oh wait, I goofed it up. I'm just gonna pull it up. I can't do it. Sorry, Dustin.
Happens to me under pressure all the time.
Yeah,
I can go through my head 1,000 times with
And then you
with
still,
a lot of things, and then I get right face to face with somebody. I'm like,
yeah, I kind of fumbled it.
I don't know.
Okay, this is
Sorry.
yellow.
It's okay.
It's all right. It's all right. I'll get there. I greet the ex-convict passengers, most of whom are women. That's Oklahoma for you. And load their belongings, shoe boxes and pasta boxes and one TV tube-sized box, all unmarked and everything they own, under the bus as they board. A woman heard me speak broken Spanish earlier and asks, ¿A cuántas horas vamos llegar en Amarillo? I tell her in su lengua. Her transfer is in about 6.5, and she replies with a drawn-out gracias. I think of the town and how I know the word for yellow in 7 languages, though I once knew more. Yellow, amarillo, Jean, giallo, gelb, amarelo, kiroi. And what little this knowledge will do for me other than similar patronization in 6 parts of the world I've never visited. Drivers keep telling me I'm spinning my wheels. At almost 27, I need rubber to meet the road. And all this time I've never owned a car, so their parlance is lost on me despite the business. But I've got talent. By what measure other than conversational peculiarity? They ask me what I'm waiting for. As I finish loading, I hold out my hand for the sparse raindrops and look out at that aubergine, hazy void amid Tulsa's BOK Tower, its green and red seasonal lights. It's a northwesterly gaze I've repeated again and again over my few years working here, and what could I possibly tell them about you? This is Lohiel's favorite bit. That I'm waiting for us to come back into each other's lives organically, and I turned it all around on a dime and felt this teleological shirt of your comfortably upper middle, type A, wanderlusting, stardom-bound, hyper-athletic, cerebral everything, and that'd be enough, but you won't, so I can't. And the 9 years worth of hope pirouetting in my closing palm is no more than the damp, spent cigarettes left behind by passengers, not the fruit of labor of a life of catatonic regrets and what-ifs is a life well wasted. But the northwest-bound bus is leaving, so now the only anodyne left is to sweep up the butts, stuck in phlegm, still warm. I always I ended that one so weird, but I was proud of it.
It's the flow of association. You never know where it'll take.
Yeah, you never know
exactly.
where it'll end up. But
it goes
yeah,
from point A to point Z in a matter of minutes, and it may wind up going to point G.54321. You know, you never know where it goes.
But yeah, that I got really into prose poetry too, but I don't write as much of it as I used to when I was a bit younger. But
I'm curious, like, you know, in Tulsa, I mean, we obviously have a lot of history here, a lot of really dark history.
Yes, unfortunately.
So what's going on there now as far as like where do you go to hang out and meet other bookworms and
yeah.
Kind of bookstores
There's actually a lot of really solid places. Yeah. Just I live at an intersection called I live in the Kendall Whittier district, which is it's still kind of a patchwork, but it's up and coming. It's got Whitty Books, which is owned by some high school friends of mine. They do really good genre stuff. They're not so good about poetry, but they got plenty of poetry. And they're also really good about promoting indie writers and indie graphic designers and zines and things like that. And that's like in walking distance from where I live. That's great. And that's right next to a really solid independent film studio. What is it called? I'm kind of embarrassed I'm blanking on it. It's like a staple in this town.
Again, that happens to me a lot too. Your mind just goes, I'll think of it later.
But and then another place I used to really enjoy was it opened not so long ago, maybe 5 years ago, maybe a little more, was Magic City Books in downtown. It's a staple of Jeff Martin. He brings in a lot of really well-known writers through, like, Pan America's contacts and things. Like we had Dave Eggers. I don't know if you're a big Dave Eggers fan, but I was when
Yes.
I was a teenager.
Yes.
And we even had Salman Rushdie coming to town. And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
what? Yeah, Salman Rushdie.
Wow.
No joke. And we had so many like I think we had gosh, well, kind of things got a little bit of a hiccup because of COVID, but we had
Mhm.
George Saunders pre and post pre and intra COVID, and I think we might have even had Margaret Atwood during the COVID, but that was the
Huh.
Zoom stuff. We had
Right.
some really solid people come through, and also on the and then they're gonna probably bring it back in a few months. They're kind of taking it easy, a little easier than other places in town, but and I'm fine with that. But they had this thing called Muse Poetry Karaoke, where it was like a nonprofit, the Muse organization, which is kind of what helped me reach out to other writers and kind of get a little bit of recognition. And it's funny to talk like that, but yeah, they had really solid poetry karaoke, and they had a new host every month, and it was just a really tight knit community of writers in Tulsa, in the Tulsa area. And maybe I've been in the kind of the rural areas like Pryor. I think Bill McLeod I met through similar events in Tulsa, and he's just such a solid friend as a poet. He was a Vietnam War vet, and
Wow.
many years later he wrote a kind of a chronological anthology of his experiences as a young man in Vietnam. Just
Mhm.
great stuff. I mean, and he even before that before I was born he wrote a kind of a I think it was called What Do We Tell Our Children About Vietnam, kind of like a retrospective about how to teach Vietnam War in contemporary historical settings. It was great. I mean, he's just a solid literary citizen.
Hmm.
He's very prolific, and but yeah, he also helped me kind of get out of my shell and reach out to more places that I probably wouldn't have otherwise. I'd probably still be just kind of like doing my own thing and hanging out in the bars and what have you. And but yeah, Oklahoma's got some really, especially in my part of Oklahoma, northeastern Oklahoma. There's some really solid, just literary writers, but literary citizens. Like they just go above and beyond to help each other out.
Mhm.
I really like that about my hometown kind of, or my home region. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I've had some writers tell me maybe when I'm older to move to like San Francisco or New York, where there's just like just some really, really prestigious literary communities. But I don't know. Maybe I might not feel the same kind of connection. You know what I mean? I mean,
Mhm.
regardless of politics and all that. But
Right. Yeah, I had a friend who went to San Francisco, and he said the lit scene there at the time, and this is maybe 7 or 8 years ago. He said it was pretty much dead at the time. So
oh
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there now, but I don't know.
Well,
Things change quite a bit.
we had a guy. I think he's out of Wisconsin, but he's been all over the country. I think he might have even been involved in the New York school in some sort of ancillary capacity. But Dr. Lewis Friedman, he came into town, just lived like a couple miles down the road from me, and he's like a PhD type poet, and he was really pushing he was the guy who was really pushing for me to look into more of the the tradition from after the confessionals up to the language puzzles. I'm really kind of weak in, admittedly, but I'm getting a little better. But and also
Mhm.
to look into presses out of New York City, indie presses, or more established presses in San Francisco and similar
Right.
communities. So I've still got a long way to go as a reader, but I'm fine with that. That's a good place to be.
Yeah,
But
the
yeah,
more, the more you learn, the more you realize there's a vast array. I mean, I repeat this a lot about the Dunning-Kruger effect in a way,
oh
it
yeah, the
applies to
Dunning
this
Kruger
kind of
effect.
thing. So
Yeah,
what are you currently reading? What's exciting you now as you're reading?
exciting me as a reader, or like as influence, or I don't
Just
know.
in general, just whatever's getting your
Yeah,
mind going.
yeah. I mean, I've been really geeking out about John Berryman. That's
Uh-huh.
a little niche. I mean, he's confessional, but he does some great stuff in form. Like his sonnets are great.
Hmm.
Um, he's an Oklahoma writer out of McAllister, which is, I think it's about maybe 150 miles from my hometown. He was kind of a bombast, but just, I loved his kind of the whole breadth of his work. He's kind of like Oklahoma's version of Yates, I suppose, which might be a little bit facile of a comparison, but he wanted to be Yates. I mean, I know that.
Hmm.
And then I got into some, I really dig Joy Harjo. Benjamin
Hmm.
Myers is a poet I talked about earlier. I love his new formalism. Dr. Janetta Calhoun Mish, she was one of my favorites. I mean, I loved her. What was that collection? I can't blank on the name of it, but it had like it had what we talk about. It's like right there, right? But she had
Hmm.
a kind of a collection of miscellaneous poems, and one of them that just really blew my mind was about being a medical employee
Hmm.
in her youth and just transitioning into poetry. And I was like, this is where I'm at, like right now. And
Right.
I think it was called Poem for a Paramedical Roustabout or something like that. But
Hmm.
and
And I don't think the medical profession and the poetry profession is really too dissimilar. I think
no,
both
they're
are
not.
about
I mean,
healing,
yeah, they're
one's the
both
body
healing
healing, and the other is more like you're addressing your mind and you're
and
addressing
your
your
emotional
soul
power
and
and
your
your soul.
emotional.
Yeah, I suppose.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it can be a very similar process in a
And
way.
yeah, and then there's this kind of this upcoming, the medical humanities. Like
Hmm.
when I was, I mean, I had all these like STEM and biochemistry credits. I just couldn't quite flesh it out well. But when I was returning to making an honest effort at going after med school, I was probably going to go into psychiatry and maybe even um, kind of like a medical humanities poetry advocacy through like the mental health and the medical field. I mean, mental health is important to me. I mean,
Right. Me
and
too.
yeah, yeah, and that's understandable. A lot of people,
Hmm.
but like I feel like you know literary therapy or poetry workshops with the conceit of trying to help someone who has struggles are just they're just wonderful. I love that concept, and I wanted to be a part of that in some small way, but probably not at the graduate or the osteopathic or medical doctoral level. But
Hmm.
you know, I'll figure it out. I mean, it's all I my
My
hopefully.
friend Usha does something called the Poetry Caravan. I don't know if she's still doing it or not, but they went into places like, clinics where there were, people suffering from various ailments and illnesses and
Mhm.
had them poetry. And they opened up about a lot of stuff
Oh
that
wow, that's great. Yes,
they had not talked about with other people.
that
It's
is
a really
phenomenal.
powerful
Yeah,
way. It's a very powerful way to open
yeah,
people. You know,
that is great. I love that stuff. I mean, it's
yeah.
I'm a big champion of mental health and the medical community and poetry. So that
Hmm.
trifecta like that, I love it. It's great.
Right. And I think
Yeah,
poetry is a very powerful force. And I
it
hate
is a
that,
very
that
powerful force.
societally speaking, it's neglected and kind of ignored or sidelined
Yes,
to
yes,
every other thing. But it's definitely,
yeah,
even it's marginalized, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. It has
yeah. It
power.
is. It is. I mean,
Live about
it
a,
kind of
go ahead.
yeah. I I mean, COVID was a rough year, but my personal roughest year was probably younger. I was 21 or 22. I was a biochemical engineering major, and
Hmm.
I just wasn't getting that sense of completion and wholeness and
Hmm.
like honestly just getting back on my feet through that stuff. It was the poetry that just really kind of helped me make sense of
Right.
my life and where to go with my life. That's I mean, I wish more people saw it that way. That you don't necessarily like one of my favorite memoirists, Kurt Vonnegut's son,
Mm.
Mark Vonnegut. He wrote a fascinating memoir about mental health and becoming a doctor, and he had bipolar disorder, and he was very frank about it in his in a book about mania. But he had this saying. This it's probably not his saying, but he had this saying: the arts aren't extra when in regards to like picking up medical students. You want well-rounded doctors and physicians, assistants, nurse practitioners. And
Hmm.
they need to heal the whole human. You have to come at it from many sides, and the arts is a very vital side, and poetry is an art. So I mean, it
Absolutely.
makes sense to me. Yeah. But
We have about a remaining 2 minutes. If you want to send some shout outs and thank yous to people who've influenced and inspired you, and maybe
yeah,
throw
for
out a
sure, for
couple of
sure. Oh,
words
this
of
is fun.
inspiration.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. Thanks to the Muse organization, Victoria McCarter, she really helped me get out of my shell. Dr. Janetka Hunmesh, when she was the chair of the Red Earth MFA program, she really helped me get way more exposure than I ever thought I could ever get at any point in my life. Benjamin Myers was a great guy. Bill McLeod, gosh, so many. Craig Shelley Lawson was probably my first poet that I read before I met, and when I met him, I just geeked out. Clement's Hurd, he was a solid dude, very friendly guy. He was really into Terrence Hayes. Got me into Terrence Hayes when I hadn't even considered that, but because his sonnets are just, I love his sonnets, but there's so many others. I don't even know where to go. Oh yeah, Scott Mcclung. He helped that piece I read. He helped me. He was like, he helped me edit it a little bit in early stages, and he was like, "Man, you got to send this out. This is great." I didn't believe him, but I went for it, and it got me into a really reputable regional journal. I mean, that's I just a lot of really solid people helped me out.
Right.
Yeah, I love this shout out thing, but
Absolutely. We always
yeah.
give an opportunity to our guests to just kind of throw some thank yous out there for people that have inspired and helped them along.
Oh yeah,
So
well, Scott
definitely.
Mcclung is with Crossroads Clubhouse, like a mental health organization advocacy group, but yeah, that was a good group for me too. My early 20s was Crossroads, but that's not really so poetry related
Right.
necessarily.
Yeah, whoever's helping you along the way. You wouldn't be the person you are today without the people in the past that have kind of pushed you out of yourself a little bit and
Yeah,
got you
yeah,
going,
yeah, for sure, for sure.
keeping you going. So everybody out there, just keep moving along, and COVID will hopefully be over soon. And
Yeah, yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna keep
Here's
doing
hoping.
this Parrot Literary Corner. This is a wonderful outlet for anybody who is a creative mind, musicians, I mean, artists, all kinds of people.
Cool,
We're not
cool.
just doing poets. We're
That's
looking for
good.
all kinds of people, who do creative endeavors, even some entrepreneurs in the arts. We would love to hear from those kind of people as well. Bookstore owners, anybody that has anything to offer to say about the arts, we would love to hear from them. So if you can suggest us to anybody, then feel free to just tell them to get in touch, and
We'll do.
definitely listen in and put them on the show. And this has been a fine afternoon with the New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering. You can donate at paypal.me/nyparrot. And please subscribe to our channel. It will help us tremendously. We're trying to reach 1 million subscribers. You can be one. Thank you very much to all our subscribers. And thank you to Laurence for joining us today. I hope everyone out there is having a wonderful afternoon. Take care, be safe, and don't forget, commit yourself to some artwork and be happy. Thank you very much.